All right, let's bring in Jonathan Horowitz.
I'm ready
now,
for him.
Right?
I am ready for him today.
Come on in, Jonathan. Jonathan is our horse racing insider. He is also the track announcer at Arapahoe Race
And
Track.
been
here.
track announcer all over the country,
Yeah.
and I didn't think he could improve on those shoes he wore last week.
But he's doing
Yes.
it.
And he cut the socks too.
And Jonathan's appearance brought to you by the Celtic Tavern.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us again. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Thanks for coming by. Well, this is the biggest weekend in horse racing. Kentucky Derby.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Huge weekend for sports.
Now, all right, so what's bigger these days? Is it the Derby or is it the Breeders' Cup? Because Breeders' Cup has really, risen in the last decade.
It's the Derby because of the history and the pageantry. The Derby's one race, the greatest 2 minutes in sports. So I think in terms of the totality of races and the quality of races, you'd say the Breeders' Cup. But you can't match the Derby as far as the prestige and the attention.
And I would say the other point about the Derby as opposed to the Breeders' Cup or in comparison to the Breeders' Cup, and I've covered both of them, Breeders' Cup moves around. And people, it's not like Augusta National with one of the reasons why it's so prestigious is it's held in the same place every year. Kentucky Derby is held in Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. That's a big party week. People coming in from all over the world. The Breeders' Cup it's in California. It's at Churchill Downs occasionally. I think that kind of, and as he says, the quality of horses in the Breeders' Cup is unmatched anywhere in the world, but it still has captured, I think, totally the public beyond racing fans.
You make a good point about being at Churchill Downs because when the starting gates open in the Derby, you can sort of flash back to that Secretariat came out of that gate, Seattle Slew came out of that gate. There's just so much tradition and so much hope. But then with the Breeders' Cup, you have the international following as well. It's both tremendous days.
When you say that, I have a flashback to watching Seattle Slew breed when they come out of the gate.
Say again?
I watched.
You watched Seattle Slew
breed?
Really?
Participate in an act to create another horse.
Really?
Someday you'll want to hear that story. Not today, but that was one of the most amazing days of my life. That was the fastest 2 minutes I'd ever seen in sports. I want to put you on the spot. I was with Noel last night. He said, say hello to you today. We were over there talking about the Kentucky Derby, and I said, I was going to match wits with you today.
Let's go.
So between his knowledge and mine, and you, I know you were going to do a
I'll
race
moderate. How's that? I'll moderate.
Right.
I haven't been watching a lot of horse racing. Can I ask one question before you talk about handicapping the race?
All right.
Is there one great barometer that tells you which horse should be the favorite and which horse will win the Kentucky Derby? One barometer year in, year out that gives you a good indication of who will perform well.
If it's one thing that I think is an indicator for a great Derby horse, a superstar horse in general, it's acceleration. And when you watch all the prep races that led into this year's Kentucky Derby, the Santa Anita Derby, the Arkansas Derby, Florida Derby, when you see a horse who, when the jockey just asks him ever so slightly and he just takes off and blows the field away, for me, that's the biggest barometer. The horse who can find a gear that the others can't match, and that's why I think American Pharoah is going to win the race.
When we'll get back to that in a minute because he and I disagree. When you and I go out to Arapahoe, the season starts.
May 22nd.
And it runs through
August 16th, although the track's open for the Kentucky Derby, and there's going to be a big party in the brand new cabana that we're opening.
Sure. Cool. And the Celtic Tavern's having a gigantic party.
Oh, it's going to be an amazing atmosphere at the
That's
Celtic.
the best one downtown that I go to every year. And I think I've told you I've won the reserve bottle of bourbon that they give away, specially put out by
Pick the winner?
2 out of the last 3 years.
Nice.
No, it has to be the best gambler of the day, which usually means the one who won the most money. Not somebody who's
not just the Derby, but the other races that preceded and followed as well.
Yeah,
because there's off-track betting at the Celtic.
Absolutely, and out at Arapahoe. So you're going to moderate it a little bit. I would say to you, in the backup, Jonathan, 2 words when you go to Arapahoe. That's where I was going with that. Late speed. To be late speed.
Which
and that means a longer race. Yeah. You're not talking about quarter horses, and because there's no late speed. It's just a sprint, if that's fair. I've never seen the Arabians. So how far do the Arabian horses usually go?
They can go anywhere from 3/4 of a mile to a mile and a quarter. They're built for
Because they're built-
endurance, and we talked about Miss Dixie winning 2 races in 2 days, a mile and an eighth one day, a mile and a quarter the next day. You don't see thoroughbreds doing that.
I just really like when I do bet on the ponies. That's the term. I like late speed. 'Cause
Okay.
the other thing is it gives you hope too. That if you're,
He's last, but just wait.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's do this.
No, just wait.
Let's go. If you're all right with this, let's go. Win, place, show, only in reverse order. Let's go place, show, win. 3rd place, 2nd place, 1st place in the Kentucky Derby, and we'll go back and forth. 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 1st.
let
All
him
right?
start.
No,
though.
I defer to wisdom.
Okay.
And a very nice
Well,
shirt.
then you would go first. Just so
Here we
you
go
know.
with your shoes. I've got a few long shots, but I'll just preface this with I like International Star a little bit. I like that as a 3rd place host. I would be willing to bet a little money because it's going to go off at such high terms. But as 3rd place, my horse that I think we'll disagree about this, Frosted. Frosted has been it's like a pitcher giving up 20 runs in a game. Frosted has had a really good year except for 1 race. I don't know whether you agree with me, but Frosted's going to be a good number. If you were to bet a trifecta and put it in there with some favorites, you'd have a pretty good payoff. And I think Frosted is a horse that has late speed, which I like. And so my show horse is Frosted.
Your show horse, Jonathan?
My show horse, and it'll be my long shot, and it's the international horse, Mubtahij, which in Arabic means elated. And you don't often see international horses doing well in the Derby. There's only been one that's ever won, Canonero II from Venezuela in 1971. But with Mubtahij, if there's going to be an international horse win the race, it's going to be Mubtahij this year. Just his style, he has that late speed, and he used it in the Derby at the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. And you're seeing now international horses coming to America and having success, and American horses going internationally and having success. California Chrome, last year's Derby winner, ran 2nd in the Dubai World Cup, will be running at Royal Ascot. So I think if there's going to be an international horse do well, it'll be the strength of a horse like Mubtahij at a time when international horses have had success in the United States.
Okay, Woodrow, your turn.
I shortly reply to that jet lag. Jet lag. It happens to horses just like it does. People talk about West Coast teams in the NFL going to the East Coast and have problems. Guess what? His horse, who I can't pronounce, is going to think it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Where's the desert?
Jonathan, don't feel bad. I get dismissed like this all the time.
This is the great thing about horse racing.
Stay away
Yeah.
from that horse.
All right, Woodrow, who's your 2nd place horse at the Derby?
Well, he's already mentioned American Pharaoh. American Pharaoh and Dortmund are equally. They're as close as Affirmed and Aladar, I think, in terms of what they could be in this race that everybody's looking forward. We're talking about Pacquiao and Mayweather. These 2 horses could be. So I'm picking Pharaoh to finish 2nd. You talked about what do you look for. There's an index on what they've accomplished this year. They're right there together. I think that the 2 favorites are going to be there. I'm going to go ahead and tell you because I think Dortmund is a little bit better horse at the end, but it could go either way. So I'm picking American Pharaoh to place and Dortmund to win.
Jonathan, 2nd place?
2nd place, I'm going to go with Firing Line, and a bit of a surprise in terms of how he gets to the Derby because he ran in the Sunland Derby in New Mexico, the same race that Mind That Bird won and then won the Kentucky Derby at 50-1 a few years ago. And I really like his preparation. He ran neck and neck with Dortmund in 2 races in Southern California, and then going to New Mexico.
Lost.
And lost, you're
Yeah,
right. But it doesn't matter if you lose in December, it's whether you can win in May.
Yeah,
and
so there.
I think that with Firing Line having the amount of time he's going to have in between races, 5 weeks, the confidence booster, breaking the track record at Sunland Park, a Derby jockey like Gary Stevens, I expect him to run a big race and perhaps be a little bit of a surprise just considering where he came from.
All right, I'm going to ask Jonathan, because he already told us, go
Well,
over why you feel your 1st place horse is your 1st place horse, and then we'll go to you.
So actually, when I came on, you talked about the shoes and the socks. I wore this because we talked about how announcing, you're trying to pick out the colors of the horses, and so I tried to represent American Pharaoh's colors.
Oh.
So when the race ends on Saturday, look for the turquoise with the gold, and I think American Pharaoh, because he's breaking from the outside, will be able to stay out of trouble. And Victor Espinoza, having won the Derby last year, when he gets ready to let the horse go, he's going to blow right by them and win the race.
Two things I'd respond to that. One is, I hope you don't wear that for 3 days. I mean, you're going to wear this.
Do those shoes glow in the dark?
No, don't look at me. Look at the horse.
Yeah. No, but the other thing is, so if you're 18, you're out here, okay? My horse, Dortmund, is in here. He's got to stay. He's got to come in.
What slot?
3.
Third
No,
slot?
Dortmund's in 8. Yeah.
8.
So he's right in the middle of the track,
Yeah.
and he's. So think of this. This is. I don't know. You see, this is a visual at home. So he comes out, and he's like right here. He's got to come from all the way out.
I almost
here.
want to announce this.
And they're not even in the real gate. They're a supplemental gate. 18, 19, 20. Man, how often does that work?
That actually happens more often than you think. What doesn't happen
Well,
often
obviously,
is
it
1,
happens
2,
more than
3
the
on
inside.
the
The inside
inside.
rail is tough.
No horse has won
Yeah.
from 1, 2, 3 since the 80s. But 18, 19, you can even have horses winning from 20. I think Big Brown won from 20.
Right. Who you got winning?
And my first, well, I got Dortmund, and I said this. Dortmund, Donald Westlake. Donald Westlake was a great humor writer that died a few years ago, and he had characters from New York City, and the lead character in this gang that never could do anything right. I recommend everybody read Donald Westlake, and his lead character was named Dortmunder, and they screwed up every crime. There have been 15 movies made of those movies. Bank Shot, if you ever saw that. There was Robert Redford was in a movie, Two Cops or something like that. Say, Dortmunder was one of my favorite all-time characters. Well, naturally, that's why if I come down and it's even, I go with one of my favorite fictional characters.
And that's the great thing about horse racing is at the end of the day, you can pick a horse based on the name, based on the color. If you pick the winner, you pick the winner. And with 20 horses in the race, it could go any way.
You know how I pick a horse or a dog when I go to the track? The last one who defecates on the infield grass. I feel he's got the lighter load, so he's probably going to be the one that's going to run faster than anybody else.
So in the last 5 minutes, we talked about horses breeding,
And
horses
defecating.
defecating.
John,
I don't know where to go with that.
Where are you going to be watching the race?
I'm actually flying back tonight to Phoenix. I'll be announcing at Turf Paradise, so I'll be following the action from Phoenix. But if you're here in Denver, Arapahoe Park, the Celtic Tavern, it's going to be an amazing atmosphere wherever you are to be following the Derby.
We have a couple of tweets. Don't go anywhere just yet.
Oh, okay.
All right, a couple of tweets about this subject from Units for Life. Danzig Moon is my long shot hot pick at 30-1 to win the Kentucky Derby. Dortmund is my pick for favorites at 3-1. So they agree with you. How do you feel about Danzig Moon?
I think that it really comes down to the trip that you get in the race, and that it's almost a good idea to go against the favorite if you're actually betting the race, because with American Pharaoh, the morning line's 5-2. I think he'll go off 2-1 with Dortmund. He's also going to be low odds, and so I think any of the 20 horses can have a chance. And so you can't really knock anybody because Mind That Bird won at 50-1.
Yeah, he's being politically correct.
All right, and one more.
No chance.
From no,
Tony Danzig. Who would bet on Tony Danzig?
Neil the Drake. Not only do I have Pacquiao winning the fight, I'm also taking him to win the Kentucky Derby. Okay.
Well, he's got
Whatever.
late speed.
No, it's not that far off, because there is a horse, It's a Knockout. And
Oh, really?
when It's a Knockout comes
okay.
into the paddock, he's going to be wearing a blanket that says Pacquiao Mayweather. So
Really?
you could actually have Pacquiao, and Pacquiao's going to be on the jockey silks, as is Mayweather. So you could actually have Pacquiao win the
You
Kentucky
took my
Derby.
stuff because I looked at that and I thought, man, there's some sort of karma here of picking It's a Knockout. Could it be incredible that there be 2 knockouts on Saturday?
He's Jonathan Horowitz. He is our horse racing insider from the Celtic
Well,
Tavern,
he's
and also
one
the
of 2 of our horse insiders.
and Woody Paige as well.
It's not going to be 2 out of 3 years you win the whiskey. It's 2 out of 4 years. That one's mine this year.
And Jonathan's appearance is always presented by the Celtic Tavern, where you can bet daily on off-track horse and dog racing, watch live and bet daily, and sip from a selection of more than 350 whiskeys. But
I
not
know.
all of them at once.
Oh, well,
It's-
I did almost last night.
It's the Celtic, and it's just 2 blocks west of Coors Field.